I mean, you go back to, let's see, when I joined the band, it was the end of 1991, and, that's when, gosh, it was like, alternative grunge and all that stuff was just taking off, but, they had, the Lips had probably been my band for, like, my favorite band for about a year before I joined. Because,
oh, really?
Yeah, I didn't hear them till like the early 90s. Obviously, they've been making records since, like, the mid-80s, but I didn't really hear them till, that record Into Priesthood and Ambulance came out, and that's when I sort of became a confirmed fan.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw them play live once, and that just cemented my feelings for it even further, because you couldn't see the band at all. The stage was filled with smoke, and they played like Under Pressure by Queen. They played a Bee Gees cover. It was just, and I saw this in Austin at the Cannibal Club, and this was during the height of like Mudhoney and all that kind of stuff. And they just seemed like they were from outer space or something, And I just loved the band, and really, to make a long story short, I played in a couple bands in Austin, and one of the bands I was in was this band called Janus 18, and they were from Oklahoma, and they wanted to move back to Oklahoma because the fortunes, seemed to be fading in Austin or whatever. So I moved to Norman with them, and then that kind of fell apart after just a couple months of being there. So I was just kind of in Norman looking for something to do, and washing dishes at a restaurant, just doing what a 22-year-old guy with, that plays drums in a band would do, And right around that time, I met Wayne, and I met those guys, and that was at the same time that Nathan quit, and we just, I don't know, it was just from the very, very beginning, the first time I ever met those guys, it was just they just seemed like cool older brothers or something.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I loved the band, but when I joined the band, I wasn't expecting anything except just to be the drummer, even though. I did play piano, I did play guitar, and I was interested in melodies and chords and things like that, but I never, at that time, I was obsessed with becoming just like a crazy rock drummer guy. And I've been doing that for a long time, and not that I didn't think the other things were valid, it's just I didn't care about playing guitar in the band or, expanding our, harmonic structures and all those sorts of things. It was just like I just wanted to join the band because I loved them. They played loud, freaky rock and roll music, and so I joined the band. And then Ronald, the guitar player that joined at that time, Ronald Jones, he was way beyond what anybody else was doing at that time. I mean, he was like Kevin Shields from My Bloody Valentine meets Miles Davis or something. He just was he was just an alien guy he just seemed so far advanced compared to. Because Jonathan Donahue, the guitar player, had quit at the same time Nathan quit. So when they were looking for a drummer, they were also looking for a guitar player.
Right.
And we tried a few people out, and a couple of people were okay. There are a few effects pedals, and they can make some cool sounds or whatever. But Ronald showed up, and he was sort of like me. By that time he knew their whole back catalog. He knew everything there was to know about them. So the first time we practiced with him, we played like 17 songs in a row without stopping.
Oh, really?
It was magical. But yeah, to try to answer your question, I joined the band as a drummer, and I think Wayne figured out pretty early on that I played keyboards, and I could sing, and I could do these things, and I could do arrangements and that sort of thing, and I was just encouraged, pretty early on. I mean, a couple months into it, I was, we'd be wherever, and I'd be playing the piano, and I think they were pretty impressed with that. So. They just, I think he just kind of remembered that down the line. And really, by the summer of '92, I was already trying to write a couple of things, and I'd play something for him, and be like, that sounds like a song. We'll just write some lyrics, and that was all there was to it. Before I knew it, was like, hey, I was helping write songs, or in some cases, I would actually come up with a song, and then he would write some lyrics.
Interesting.
It evolved and progressed from there. And then after Ronald quit after 2 records. He quit after Clouds Taste Metallic. We were just kind of in this limbo of trying to figure out how to continue on without being like a guitar rock band, And Ronald quitting kind of helped us, kind of forced us to do that. And I was becoming just more and more interested in wanting to do like orchestral sounds and, just non-distorted guitar things, more synthesizers and strings and horns and things like that. And and then we all were, and it just sort of one thing fed another, and we started to listen to more jazz and just more things that because I've heard jazz all my life, but I never really cared about any of it till I think it must have been like 27 or 28 when I finally started to like hear it and think, wow, I would like to do things like that with my music, the music I'm making. I would love to have some of those some of those means of expression, you know. So I started listening to more, you know, Miles Davis, like the Miles Davis, Gil Evans stuff, and
oh, really?
John Coltrane, and some, you know, those sorts of things. And just instead of just listening to, go, that's cool. Like I was listening to it, trying to figure out what they were doing as far as their chord structures and harmonies and things like that. And so by the time we were making Zyrick and the Soft Bulletin, we were fully into that sort of trip, you know. Like we weren't worried about recording guitars at all. I mean, there are guitars on those records, but for the most part, we were just trying to do the opposite of being just a loud rock band. So, and it's just evolved from there. You know?
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, Transmissions was your first record with the band?
Yeah, that's the first record I played on. That was me and Ronald, and we did those 2 records, and then Ronald quit, and that was the end of that sort of era. It was pretty short. It was just a couple of years, really, a few years. So.
And I mean, were you playing any guitars or keyboards on that record?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I did play. You know, I probably played a third of the guitar parts on Transmissions, and probably a good third of the parts on Cloud Shapes Metallic too, because a lot of the songs were songs I came up with musically anyway. So I would just play the things that I came up with, and you know, there's a few songs on that Transmissions. You know, Slower of Action. I played all the main stuff on that, and Pilot Can't the Queer of God and Be My Head. Those are songs that I came up with musically. Chewing the Apple of Your Eye, that one as well. And so yeah, I mean, it wasn't like it was some big switch, you know. I mean, yeah, by the time Ronald left, it was, you know, I mean, I'd been playing guitar and keyboards on those previous records anyway, so it didn't seem that weird, you know. It was just weird not to have his. I mean, that's the thing about Ronald. You'd get the main bits of the song down, the meat of it or whatever, and he would come in and he'd just throw some stuff on there. It was like, wow, it would just take it to some other plane.
Huh, interesting. So he was I mean, he did kind of influence your approach to playing in Lips, and.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I still, you know, when I think of all the people whose guitar playing I admire, I mean, he's still at the top of the list. It's you know, that experience. And the way we did things was so different back then, because when we played live, we were just 4 guys, and it was really loud, and we did have a bit of a stage show, but nothing like we do now. I mean, it was just more visceral rock and roll played live, and he could make it sound like there was 20 people up there playing, you know, and it's just him. And I still listen to those records, and I'm not sure how he got that sound. Even though I was right there watching him like hook it up through like 20 different effects. I don't know what it is. So especially now, because I'm in this new phase of. For a while, I was just wanting to become a better guitar player, just like technically, you know, for a long time. Not that I'm not still trying to do that, but now I'm sort of obsessed with combinations of effects, and I've been going crazy buying old effects pedals. I've spent, actually, I'm not going to tell you how much, but in the last couple of months, I've just gone completely overboard trying to find all these old pedals that, you know, some are classics that everybody wants, and some are more obscure things. So now that I'm getting into that, I'm really starting to appreciate what Ronald was doing back in 1991, 92, 93, or whatever, you know.
Interesting.
Because back then, I mean, there were plenty of guys that had the stomp boxes and stuff, but a lot of guys were just using, you know, MIDI controllers and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Know? And he had, I remember, like, by 95, he had 3 Evantides in his rack just for his stage setup. Besides, like, all the homemade pedals that he built. He even took, like, a wah pedal and reversed the potentiometer or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
He reversed it so when you switched it on, it wasn't in the high trebly position, it was actually in the low mid-rangey position.
Interesting.
Yeah, and he was just a maniac like that. So, yeah, to answer your question, he's still is a big influence on just anytime I'm trying to come up with something that sounds interesting or doesn't sound like just regular lead guitar. It's like, you know, what would Jones do? You know?
So Stephen, I mean, can you talk about some of these, you know, these pedals you've been messing with? I mean, obviously I mean, your thing is like this, you know, this insane pedal board, and I mean, half those sounds you're getting, I mean, on the DVD. I mean, I don't have a clue what you're doing. Well, what we'll do is we'll talk about some of those songs specifically in a few minutes here. But I mean, could you talk a little bit about? I mean, for you, is it just like, you know, hearing a pedal and going, wow, that's great, and check out this F-sharp minor chord on there, and that's the sound I needed to write this song? I mean, is it sort of matching, you know, song ideas in your head, or is it just looking for a sound and then?
Yeah, I see what you mean. That's a really good question, actually, because Wayne and I were just talking about that, you know. And he was saying that I have this tendency to do things, whether it's like a keyboard sound or a guitar sound. He says that I have this tendency to, like, as soon as I hear a sound, I play to the sound.
Interesting.
So, like, if it's, you know, like you're saying, like, oh, this particular phase through that delay, for some reason I don't know what it is, I guess have this instinct to want to just try to play something to the sound. So to answer your question, you know, it's kind of half and half. Sometimes I'll have an idea in my head of what I'd like something to sound like, and I can create that with a combination of things. And then sometimes it's just that beautiful happy accident where you plug in a couple of things, and it's something you would have never thought of in a million years, and that's your sound right there.
Right, exactly. I mean, Stephen, can you talk about, I mean, some of these kind of, you know, pedals you've been messing with, and maybe sort of how your pedal board has evolved, and how it obviously, I would think, you know, keeps evolving?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that's really frustrating for me, as much as I love the old vintage stomp boxes and stuff. You know, when we play live, I don't take any of that stuff with me. All my live stuff is all new. It's all...
Is that right?
It's all Boss and Line 6 stuff, because that shit, it's too noisy, it breaks down, it just can't handle the wear and tear of traveling all the time. So honestly, live, people are always disappointed when I tell them I'm just running a Boss GT8 through a Line 6 delay, or a Line 6 filter modeler and a Line 6 delay modeler, and they're ran stereo out pan through a Roland KC 550 and a Fender Super Twin Reverb. That's it. I mean, I don't have like a bunch of stomp boxes. At home, it's a different story. I've probably got 60 pedals now, you know, and I'm always trying weird combinations of those things. But even at the studio, I'll find that, and it's really frustrating because I have all these pedals that I love. Half the time, I'll end up using like some plug-in in Pro Tools or something that's not even like a real pedal, you know.
Yeah, interesting.
But my favorite thing right now is actually Dave Friedman, our producer. He's got one. I can't find another one anywhere. He's got and we've used it a bunch. It's you know, Diarmon. I don't know if you've heard of Diarmon. They made
right. The pickup guys.
Square wave. They started making pickups was their first thing, and they actually built effectively the very, very first outboard effects. It was right? It was called the Tremolo Troll.
Wow.
And it worked with this. It was actually like a liquid. That wasn't mercury, but it was some kind of liquid in a weird trough thing. And I forget how it sent the signal through and actually made this water. It's really hard to explain, but they made one of the very first pedals. It wasn't even the pedal, it was like an effects thing. But so Dave's got this Diarmon Thunderbolt, which is a fuzz wah that they made in the mid-'70s, and it's beautiful. It's better than like the Maestro fuzz phaser. It's better than all those other pedals that do that. So that's kind of my new obsession right now. I was trying to find one of those, but
interesting.
But yeah, so I have tons of pedals, but honestly, I haven't changed my live setup in a couple of years, to be honest with you.
And you're a jazz master guy. I mean, does that go back a ways?
It does, yeah, it does. Because I bought that guitar in 1993. It's a 1967 Jazzmaster. And it was back when we were playing live, I was just playing drums. I wasn't playing guitar at all. And Wayne borrowed it one time, and we were about to go on tour in 1994, and I came over to the house, and he's like, I hope you don't mind. I picked it out and put a hot rail in it.
You're kidding me.
And I was like, what the fuck, man? What are you doing?
Oh, my God.
Ask me, you know?
Oh, shit.
And it's funny because after he did that, you know, it's... Because, again, a lot of those guitars, especially the volumes we play, man, they just get so unwieldy, the feedback and everything. It's just really hard to control them, especially when you have, you know, six different effects going. You know, you've got, you know, you've got phase, you've got delay, you've got two different types of distortion, you know, and you got wah. It's like the noise levels on those things get so bad. So he put that hot rail in it, and I was kind of mad for a couple of days. But now I'm glad it's in there because that's still my main guitar to this day that I've started using when I started playing guitar, and that'll probably be my main guitar for the rest of my life. It's amazing. It's still it'll stay in tune. Like I can't really describe to you how long it will stay in tune for. That's really
unbelievable.
And if the strings get sweaty and stuff, and shaky, but sometimes I don't change them for really long periods of time.
Wow.
But I have a couple of new guitars that I use on stage. I have a 60s Supro that I've been using, and I've got an Epiphone double neck, which I found was actually preferable to the Gibson double neck that they sent to me, but maybe you shouldn't print that. But
I mean,
I got this Epiphone double neck, kind of a cheapie, you know, just like the 1275, you know, the SG sort of body.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's really, I love the 12-string on it. It's just a really specific, it's like a non-Rickenbacker 12-string sound, which I really like.
Interesting, yeah.
I'm using those three guitars on stage for the most part.
So the strange-looking guitar you use is You just mentioned in the DVD that weird little one. I think you just mentioned it for the live show.
Supro?
Yeah, is that what that is?
Yeah, it's like a black, almost kind of a Les Paul looking body, but it was just solid black.
Yeah, and let me just get my notes here.
Wait, which part of the DVD is it? A live show? Or
Yeah, it's the one from the zoo.
Oh, okay, yeah. So you've seen the zoo show?
Yeah, yeah, UFOs at the zoo. Which one?
It's definitely the Supro then. I don't know which show you're talking about, but that's the Supro.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to look what it said up on the neck of the guitar, as I'm watching, and I couldn't see it.
Yeah, Supro. I think Supro is most famous for. They made a few different series of amps, but their Supro Thunderbolt amp is supposedly what Jimmy Page used on the first couple of Zeppelin records. But there's been all this controversy about it among guitar nerds.
Right.
But yeah, that guitar is I'm not even sure what kind of pickup you call it. It's along the same line, same family as like Jack White's Airline guitar,
Yeah, right.
Kind of trip, but it's really solid and just like the clean sound of that guitar is really, really amazing. I really love it quite a bit, and you got to work hard to play it. It's like playing like six strings of barbed wire on a phone. It's like and I've got 12 gauge strings on it, so they're really just like
Oh, really? You use heavy gauge?
I use heavy gauge. Yeah.
You do?
Especially live, just because just the idea of things going out of tune, I just can't handle that. So honestly, I just like the feel of heavy strings anyway. So
interesting. I mean, Stephen, did you go through a period of messing with different guitars before the Jazz Master? I mean, were you like trying Strats and Les Pauls or?
No. I mean, I never. I think the only guitars I had owned in my life, I had a friend gave me a Les Paul copy that I had for about 3 months, and I found a PV amp in a dumpster, and that was my guitar rig when I was like 19, and I was trying to learn how to play all this stuff, and I'd never really owned any guitars, and there's a shop in Oklahoma City called the Horn Trader, and he's got some beautiful old vintage instruments. I walked in, I saw the guitar, I had money that I wanted to spend, I saw it was like $700, and I said, before I even tried to play it, I was like, I love that guitar. I want that guitar. And then I strapped it on and played it. I was like, okay, this is the guitar for me.
Wow.
But actually the two guitars I like least probably are Stratocasters and Les Paul.
That's so interesting.
And the only people I've liked playing a Stratocaster are David Gilmour. I like some Hendrix, but not all of it. And Wayne from the Lips played a Stratocaster up to like 1993, and then he switched to my Jazz Master. So there you go.
Interesting.
Les Paul. I mean, Jimmy Page is my favorite guitar player of all time.
He is.
Yeah, he absolutely. But I don't. Besides him, I'm not really crazy about the Les Paul too much. So.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I certainly, can hear kind of, little flashes of Gilmour in some of your playing, some of the tones, and not that you sound like Jimmy Page or like Gilmour, but I get a sense that just somehow the way your rhythm section works and the way you kind of build your riffs. I mean, I just get a Zeppelin feel from. I'm not quite sure what it is.
I mean, undoubtedly, I would just take that as a compliment.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, especially Led Zeppelin, because as in some ways as overrated as they are, they're still not appreciated in ways they should be appreciated.
No, you're right.
Because everyone's like, oh, the ultimate hard rock band. It's like House of the Holy. Some of that is, it's great psychedelic music.
Yeah.
Especially if you're trying to pick it apart and figure out what they were doing, like the Rain Song or some of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so funny that you would pick that as your favorite Zeppelin record, because it is obviously one of their, more sublime kind of recordings. Or somebody would pick the first record or the fourth record, or but.
Oh no, for me, hands down, it's House of the Holy. That's my absolute all-time favorite out of all of them by far. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, are you a tuning kind of guy? In other words, are you looking for different tunings? Or are you using different tunings when you play?
Always, yeah. I mean, one of the songs on our new record, Vein of Stars.
Vein of Stars, yeah.
Yeah, Wayne wrote that, but he came across that. I had my Gibson 330 tuned. I had it like where it was tuned F, A, D, C, and then F, F. So the two thinnest strings were just a drone, both the name.
Wow.
And he picked up the guitar and just strummed that open. I definitely like the idea of trying to do the drone tunings. Those are always fun, you know.
Interesting.
Just because, and then just for me, besides the way things sound different, it's nice to tune it different because then your brain's not in control of what you're playing.
Exactly.
And you'll play things you would never think to otherwise, you know. So so Wayne picked up the guitar and it was tuned weird, and then he started strumming a couple of chords, and that's how he came up with Dana Star. So we're always messing with